Hello. Welcome to my channel. My name is Savella I Love. Here we are healing hearts. We're helping people to get back into living a life that they love, one soul at a time, after a major loss or major life transition. Now, tonight I'm going to be talking about being in love with a widow or a widower. And from here on out, I'm just going to say widow because it's easier than saying both words over and over again. So bear with me here. I've been a therapist for over 20 years. I'm a grief and loss specialist. I've had a ridiculous amount of loss myself by an early age. And so helping people to get back into living a life that they love again after these major losses is what I do. Now, if you'd like to learn more about me, you can find more about that on my About section on this channel. Please like and subscribe. If you have some comments, please post them below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now, if you're in love with a widow, what are you really up against? Because many people message me and say, gosh, there's so many things that I want from this person. I'm having a terrible time getting them. What can I do about it? So let's talk about what some of those things are to help you to understand from that perspective, things you may know, but let's acknowledge them and put them on the table. Okay, number one, the biggest barrier for a lot of people is not necessarily the widow who wants to be able to love again. They may want to, but these things that are standing in between them and a life that they could potentially have is, number one, often their family. Because the family, particularly children in many instances, have a really hard time being able to allow the parent to move forward into a new love relationship. One, there's the romanticized ideal, but that there's only one true love in this life. And that somehow, if the parent moves forward to love someone else, somehow in their mind, even if they don't consciously think this, they may feel that it's canceling out the love that person had for their deceased spouse. Now, nothing could be further from the truth. But here's the thing. Emotions aren't rational. They're not rational. And so they will often take the place of any rationality in that situation. And so as a child, they just want to see their parents be together forever, whether they're in life or in death. And even with parents that have been divorced, children often fantasize about them getting back together, even when the relationship was bad, although not always. But it's very common. And so this thought that bond could somehow be broken is very terrifying to a child, whether they're little or whether they are an adult. Now, they're not the ones that lost their spouse, so they don't really understand what that's like for the parent to be alone. They don't understand what that's like. They just know that they lost their parent. And now they don't want to lose the concept of their parents by seeing that one move on with someone else. So it can be very scary for them. And I hear widowers all the time tell me that their children are creating a hostile environment for any new love to come into their life. Or they're constantly in the parent's ear about, what about mom or what about dad? And reminding them constantly as if it's not all right for them to try to or think about loving someone else again. And so this creates a guilty feeling inside the widow that is thinking that they might like to or are having feelings for someone else or curiosity, what it'd feel like to feel good again, to be loved again, to hold someone in your arms again. But that child, the adult or young child, can't take the place of the beloved. And as a matter of fact, no one can take the place of the beloved that's gone, ever. There can only be something new and different. And so that's a whole nother post in itself, is how to deal with the family or how to deal with the children when the widow or widower is wanting to move forward. But so now if you're the partner of one or the interested partner of a potential love partner who would be a widow or a widower, that just know that guilt that they may be living with can be very overpowering and constantly reinforced by family. And so that makes it hard for them to move forward with you, because although they may be all right when you're alone together because they can kind of envision a life with you, the reality of their world doesn't just include you, it includes everyone. Okay. So, and if this person is not empowered about standing up for their right to be able to love because they're not comfortable with it yet, then there's something that you can do about that. You can do with it anyway. And we'll talk about that towards the end of this video, so stick around. And also, please remember to subscribe, like, and comment below for anything that you think is significant for you here. So, a widow also might not know how to touch someone else, how to really engage with someone else in a loving, affectionate manner, because you're totally new. Now, even if they've already had an engagement with you, maybe you've kissed, or maybe you even made love already, or maybe you've just gone on a date, it doesn't matter. There's still this barrier of intimacy that a widow or a widower may hold themselves back from. Because if they go beyond that barrier, somehow it feels like now they've cheated, right? So if they withhold themselves, and they can feel like maybe this is not really cheating because they haven't come to terms yet with them, with themselves, and with their desire to be with you, or to move forward and have that love again. So they're not settled with it yet. They may fear somehow that they can't love someone else truly again, and that they'd be cheating you if they went with you, and that they don't want to cheat you. And so I have a solution for that, or a potential solution, because there's never just one right answer to this scenario. But ultimately, I want to remind you that you have to take care of yourself. If you are in love with a widow and you would love to be closer to them, and you're facing these barriers of family, of guilt, of them just, maybe they're always talking about their deceased loved one when you're present, and you feel like there's no space for you in the relationship, some of the things that you can do about that is, number one, it might be a long wait, because the reality for some people is that they may never really get over the hump of understanding that their heart is infinite and their heart is able to love again. They may never get over it. And the thing is, you can't love them enough or long enough to make them change. They have to come to this realization themselves. They have to fully own the desire and their right to be able to love again. And they also have to be able to own their power to say to their family, this is a choice that I'm making. I will always love your father. I will always love your mother. That will never end or die. And I'm lonely and I want someone in my world. And I hope someday you'll be able to accept that. Now, their children or whomever, their the parents of the deceased loved ones may not be able to accept it. And so this is work they have to do around that. We have to allow people to be as they are, to be where they're at, wherever that happens to be. So you may be in a position of having to accept where this widower is at right now in their lives, with the pressures around them, with the guilt that they may be experiencing, coupled with their desire to be with you. All of it, it's very complicated. And the closer they are to their loss, the harder it's going to be for them. Okay, so if they're shutting you out, if they're not responding, and if some days they're loving and affectionate and other days they're withdrawn, this is the kind of yo-yo that you may be on, because they're in that same yo-yo with themselves, that inner struggle. Now, I help widows and widowers with this all of the time. I help them to move through these feelings and to be able to get empowered and move into a life that they love and want to be in. But they're not here and they're not at my table. You are, because you're the one listening to this video, because you're in love or desiring a widower. So, question to ask yourself: are you able to remain friends with this person? So what I want to say is, sometimes a difficulty between two potentially romantic partners can be very challenging, because there's always that heated, unspoken attraction that's going on. So that may be a difficulty. But if you can maintain a friendship at a distance, which means you may at some point choose to withdraw yourself from the inner circle, or the private life of this widower. Okay, remove yourself from the circle, and then do something that's very hard to do. If they're not ready, if they're keeping you on a yo-yo, if they can't allow you into their private life, they can't allow you around their friends or family because their friends and family are not supportive, if they're not willing to stand up for themselves yet, then you have this choice to remain friends and remove yourself from the situation. Allow them this alone time to feel, this is just an option, it's not necessarily what you should do, it's something to consider if it's right for you. Allow them this alone time to see the world around them passing them by. Because it may be that after they've dipped their toes in the water with you, romantically speaking, and now they are pulling back, they're living in this state of fear. They're living on the fence, and you don't have to wait for them on that fence because it's not fair to you to do that. What's fair is for you to take care of yourself and allow that person to be and do exactly what they need to do to take care of themselves right now. So you could say something to the effect of, Joe or Sally, I respect where you're at, and I love that you care so much for your family and that you want to protect everyone, and I appreciate that you're just not sure how you want to move forward right now, and I respect you. And right now I need to take care of myself. And so I'm going to remain friends with you. We can be in contact once in a while. And I'm going to continue to live my life. I want to have love and express your desires. I want love in my life. I want connection. I want to have someone I can do and enjoy life with. And I see you want those things too. So when you're ready to fully embrace them, reach out. And I'm going to go continue to live my life and then go do that. Go live your life. Date other people. Put yourself back out there, because this leaves that widower then in the space of looking out and seeing what you're doing and seeing this potential pass them by. Now, they may not respond right away. It may be months, and there's no reason you can't stay in contact. Reach out 3 months later, reach out 6 months later. Hey, what you doing? Bob, how are you doing, Sally? Say hello. If you're still single and you're still interested, just like connecting with an old friend. So now you're giving yourself permission to focus on what you want. So what is it that you want? That's the number one thing to identify. Do you want love? Do you want companionship? Do you want intimacy? Do you want someone that you can be involved fully in their life with? Are you getting that from this widow or widower? And if you're not getting those things, then they are not ready. And it's okay. This isn't a fault in them. It's not a problem to still love your late spouse. And as a matter of fact, even when they are ready to move on, if they ever are, they're still going to love them. And that's something you have to be able to be well with. Some people are better at it than others. And it always takes good communication between the two, or at least a very strong and deep mutual respect for what was. And then to know that as you take your time in this person's life, slowly integrating over time can help to ease those tensions. But depending on the family members, you may never reach full acceptance. It's just the reality in some families. And other families, after a while, they finally warm up and start to get used to the person, and eventually you're welcomed in to the circle of trust. So you have to decide what you want. What are you willing to sacrifice? Okay? And don't say, I'll sacrifice everything for love, because that's not fair to you, because then you end up alone crying, wanting someone that's actually still very much alive that you can't have. And that's not fair to you. Okay? So you also have a heart that's infinite. And even if you're in love with that person, you still have the ability to love someone else. Don't fool yourself thinking just because you love, widower Bob or Joe or Sally or whoever, doesn't mean that you also can't move forward and love someone else. You'll just look back on Bob with fondness. You look back on Sally with with love, and try not to hate them for not being able to give you what they are unable to give right now. Just give them the love, the gift of space and time and perspective, because maybe it will grow on them. Maybe eventually they'll come around and call you in 3 months, 6 months, in a year and see, what are you doing? And now they're a little bit more ready, and your patience has infinitely paid off. But you're not your patience and sitting around waiting for them to get off the pot of indifference. No, you're out living your life, enjoying people's company, being open to whatever life might bring you, saying yes to love, to your health. Don't cheat yourself by sitting around and waiting for what may never be, but be open to the possibility of love for yourself. Allow space and time, and always honor yourself, your desires, and what you need and want in your life, and then go for that. And if there's a wall, then find another path. Know that your heart is infinite, and you can love again too. Good night.